This is the Wait For It podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wait For It podcast. I'm your co-host, Phil Barrera, aka Phil the Filipino.
And I'm your other co-host, Mr. Eric Almighty. And for this edition of the Game Room Where It Happens, we are talking about a classic, I would say underrated gem back in 2011, Rockstar Games. You know that we're waiting on GTA 6, so why not reminisce about a game that people don't talk about enough? And that game, Phil, is L.A. Noire.
Yeah, 2011 release, published by Rockstar, developed by Team Bondi. And this is a game that now, obviously it's very much memed, one specific meme that pops up quite a bit when you think of L.A. Noire. But what a lot of people have forgotten in the almost 15 years since it released is that it was kind of a cutting-edge game in terms of trying new things. Did those things work? Maybe to varying levels of success, which we will talk about. We have a very unique perspective here because Eric has been streaming this game over on the Wait For It Twitch. So if you want to, if you're listening to this episode, I believe there'll be one more LA Noire stream that you can check out if you're listening to this on the day of release. But yeah, Eric, a very interesting game. And honestly, it kind of like bums me out because I just don't know that Rockstar is going to take a shot on something like this again in the future.
So I've been playing the game recently a lot, and I think when I say underrated, like, for its time, it's underrated. Because going back to play it, like, I've got a lot of mixed feelings, all still pretty positive, which is why we wanted to do this episode. But it's been really eye-opening to see, like, what that game was trying to do back in 2011. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion that we're going to have. Phil having not played the game since then, and then me with a fresh pair of eyes in 2025. Like, does this game hold up? The answer's yes and no. So very excited to kind of talk about that and talk through what you remember and what I've noticed since we played it back then.
Yeah, I was working at GameStop at the time when this game came out. It got the Game Informer treatment, first main cover as far as the game coming out, and yeah, it was a big deal as far as the things that this game was trying to accomplish. So let's go ahead and get into it here. If you want to know where you can find the rest of our episodes, as well as all of our Game Room episodes, make sure you stick around to the very end, and we'll give you a reminder as to where you can find all of that. But yeah, Eric, let's get into it. L.A. Noire 2011, like I said, published by Rockstar Games. L.A. Noire is a detective thriller set in 1947 Los Angeles, where you play as Cole Phelps, an LAPD officer working his way through cases inspired by real crimes of the era. Using groundbreaking facial animation, you'll investigate crime scenes, interrogate suspects, and uncover a city where glamour and corruption walk hand in hand. So yeah, Eric, are we adopting the 3 takeaway system for this episode?
Yeah, why not? Let's do that. We didn't really talk about that, but that actually, that kind of makes sense all around. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's start with the facial animation and technology there first, because that's the most important. That's one of the first things, if not the first thing that people talk about when it comes to L.A. Noire. It was the MotionScan system, and it was delivered unprecedented, realistic facial expressions, and they actually did not use like Rockstar's typical engine. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that is what people think of when it comes to this game. And a lot of people also bring up, Eric, that uncanny valley effect. So again, I've not played the game since it has released. You have more recently seen this, and you actually are playing L.A. Noire in its rawest form because the re-release did not come out on PC, which is strange. Not sure why they didn't do that. So you're playing this game as it released in 2011. So what was it like going back to that and seeing that facial animation and technology? Do you still get that like something doesn't look right feeling, or did it not bother you as much?
So it's definitely interesting because that's when we talk about the highs and the lows. This game definitely has a lot of them. And with the facial recognition, all I thought of was that being like the thing I remembered the most about this game. Going back to it, it's a little clunky at times, but I do think it's still very impressive for the time. Like, I definitely see what they were doing there, and I would love to see what that kind of like role play environment would be, where it would be a little bit more seamless. Like when I'm playing the game, you would have the character display a lot of emotions, and then there'd be a pause or a break, and then they'd start making faces. as you're trying to tell, are they telling the truth? Are they doubting? Are they just straight up lying? Can you prove that? That's an interesting aspect in itself. But getting to see the faces, while they are pretty decent, sometimes that cut between the statement they make or the expression they had, it doesn't always line up in the moment. And that leads to, some, and probably purposefully so, leads to a little bit of confusion on what they're actually intending. And obviously that's a mechanic of the game, but I think because it came out in 2011, some of it was just before its time, and it does come across a little clunky, a little goofy at times, and I don't think that was the intention back then, just the limits of the technology back then.
Yeah, do you remember in the museum episode of The Last of Us Part 2 where you can go to the mirror and make a bunch of faces as Ellie?
Kind of like that.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
In LA Noire. Are you pro or anti Polar Express? I can't remember.
I mean, I guess I would say pro, just because,
yeah.
I do sit down and watch it when it's on. So yeah, I'd say pro. Come on now.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, bring up that. Beowulf is like another project that people bring up when it comes to like the strange uncanny valley effect here.
Adventures of Tintin?
Tintin, yeah. We very much enjoyed Tintin. Tintin probably fit right into this world, actually. I mean, I'd play the hell out of a Tintin game. Actually, now that I think, that's Uncharted. Never mind. Anyway, we're getting away from the beat. But yeah, something about it, even looking back at it all this time later, just seems a little off. Also, I don't know if this would have affected your gameplay, Eric, but when they updated the game in 2017, when they re-released it, they changed the truth, doubt, and lie to good cop, bad cop, and oh my gosh, what was the last thing? Good cop, bad cop, and a third option. But they changed those options as far as functionality goes when you were in the interrogation scenes. Do you think that would have altered your gameplay a little bit? Because there were a lot of people that had criticisms about doubt, because it would just make Cole just get really aggressive.
Really? So that was actually... I'll provide what you were missing there, and then I'll also go to my takeaway, which is Cole a good guy? Is he a good cop at all? Is he a no-nonsense, like, stay-by-the-law kind of guy? I don't know, because he's, like, unnecessarily aggressive. I remember that about the game. I now know it's just, like, so unwarranted. It's so unwarranted. So I guess they changed it. Truth, doubt, and lie are now good cop, bad cop, and accuse.
Accuse, that's what it was, yeah.
Accuse?
You'd be like, well, you're a fat piece of shit. You're going to die alone. Tell me the truth.
I'd say personally, good cop, bad cop, accuse, I would like to play that way. And honestly, now that I have those in my brain, because I didn't know they made those changes on the, on the new version or the updated version, that's going to help me. It really is. So I don't think truth, doubt, or lie is very effective, because Cole gets so aggressive on doubt. That's obviously the meme. The other thing is, it's hard to really know when to do truth or lie. Like, you want to, like, get someone caught, but sometimes what I notice with the game is you might not know you have the evidence. It might not be very obvious. So it, like, makes you really hesitant. And then your two choices most times are truth or doubt. And that's where you run into that really delicate balance of sometimes you'll just select truth because you know Cole's going to be a complete asshole. And you're like, and some of these people will not talk to you anymore. Like, they'll just like, you're an asshole. I'm not talking to you. And it's kind of a crazy dynamic. Again, something that I love about the mechanic of the game, but in execution, playing it in 2025, it is definitely a frustration point for me.
Yeah, I think I saw that 45% of the dialogue, the correct answer is doubt. So, they do lean on that quite a bit. So, and you can tell that the voice actor had a lot of fun doing it as well, as far as like kind of going off the rails. This is also a sidetrack area. This is very heavily inspired by a lot of obviously noir-based films, and I would like to add LA Confidential to our late to the party list. So something I definitely would like to like dive into in the future. But yeah, the good cop, bad cop, accused system is much better. I would have liked to play that. It's nice that they added that update in the remaster. They also added all the DLC. So I don't know that I would, after this episode, like, I really don't have the desire to go back and play it on like PlayStation or on Xbox. Just getting to dive into the game and learning more about it has been a lot of fun though. So, But yeah, that is an interesting question. Like, is Cole, like, he is kind of like branded as this do everything by the book, but he's just so aggressive. And when you learn more about his backstory, I'm not sure how far into his backstory you've gotten or that you recalled. You know, he's gone through a lot of shit, but still, like, I would like to do like a full-on doubt run. You should just doubt everybody on your next playthrough. Just get all that dialogue.
Just get it out of the way. Well, I'll be right 45% of the time, apparently.
Yeah,
so
that's almost half. So it's almost a guarantee.
Something to consider.
Well, what is those are our first takeaways. I'll throw it back to you. What's your second takeaway?
Yeah, so for my second takeaway, I think, in playing this game, one of the things that I don't remember about this game is the story. And I think when we talk about some of the narrative structure with this story, this is where we kind of get into the lower lows, where, again, a lot of stuff is like highs and lows, or just highs. And I think when it comes to the gameplay, we'll get into that, I'm sure, at some point. That's got a mixture. The story, I think, is mainly just lows. Not the detective cases, though. That's where those kind of stick at a high. And I think there is some realism in that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is some reality into those cases, like real-world cases, like things that actually happened that they pulled from. And it can get really dark. And in those moments, you kind of appreciate what the game is doing. Unfortunately, due to the times and the settings, everybody really hates women and anybody of ethnicity, like ethnic background. So it's tough in that aspect too. The story, though, at its core, what it's trying to tell, I guess, is weird, Phil, because I'm not all the way through, so I don't remember every moment of it. But the story is really wonky between all the detective cases, which each individually introduce you to characters and settings and scenarios that are interesting. But there's this like flashback story because he went to World War II, and you're reading these newspapers, which also has like a separate side story that I think does tie in to the main story potentially. Phil, I'm not sure what you gathered from your research. You might be able to give some more input on the overarching theme, but for me, just playing about 8 hours of it on stream, it was my least favorite part. And all these years later, before I ever touched the game again, the story was the thing I forgot about the most, and I can kind of tell why now. So that's my second takeaway, is detective work and what you're doing when you're on patrol, traffic, you go to homicide, and then like arson. Like those things are all really interesting individually, but in the grand scheme of things, story-wise, this is not why I wanted to play this game again.
Yeah, we're pretty much in lockstep here in terms of our second takeaways, so we'll just blend them together here. So yeah, to talk about what you first had mentioned, a lot of research went into creating this game. You can tell they definitely wanted to make this like a love letter to that era. A lot of the in-game cases were inspired by actual cases, a lot of real life headlines. Some of the things that they actually got from newspapers back in the day were actually just too silly to fit the theme of the game. They went through a bunch of newspaper archives, sifting through like the Los Angeles Times. They spoke with retired LAPD officers, things of that nature. So all of that really shines through, but I think in terms of just making a cohesive narrative, because they're trying to juggle, like you said, the backstory and also the current day. They also reference like the Black Dahlia killer. If you're a true crime aficionado, the Black Dahlia, that's like one of the main true crime stories that's out there. So they try to like branch it into this alternate timeline of if that continued to happen. So I think they were just juggling a lot, and because the project is so ambitious, that maybe that's why it fell a little short when it came to the story. Because yeah, the final whole story does go back into Cole's days in the war, and honestly, it's not that interesting, to be honest with you. And because there are so many horror stories from that era, Cole's isn't particularly like harrowing, and also we've already touched on it already. Like, is he even really the most likable guy? Who's really likable is his first partner. His first partner when he gets to traffic, I think, is probably his strongest partner out of all of them. But he's not our main character. So
yeah,
that's
a
problem right there.
More shitty as we go on, I think.
Yeah, and that plays into the corruption story that they're playing, and so you're dealing with corruption and an up and coming cop, and he's got a tainted past, and there's serial killers all this going on, and then there's the plot. Have you gotten to the plot about the shitty houses that are being built? Like, have you gotten to that point? I don't know if you
I don't
remember
think
that part.
so. No.
Yeah, so there's that, so there's just they're juggling so much. That is something that you expect from a Rockstar game, but remember, they're publishing this game. They're not developing it. So, like, Team Bondi, I think their big notable game is, I think, the Getaway game, which is a good game. But, like, it was just a lot to juggle, especially, again, 2011.
Yeah, it's really one of those things where I think, it's the age of the game showing itself, but also, like, it's just not as cohesive as some of those bigger titles. So while this game is like an underrated gem, it is also kind of understandable that it wasn't a big market game. Like, it's not a big game like a Grand Theft Auto or a Red Dead Redemption. I can understand that a little bit more now, having played it after all these years. But that was my, second takeaway. Phil, what was, yours was also pretty much the same. So why don't I throw it back to you for the third and final takeaway that you had?
Yeah, for the third, it's kind of both, again, like we already talked about, it's like they're both highs and lows, positives and negatives. I do very much like that the detective stuff, I think they nailed. Like, some of our favorite parts about the Arkham series is doing the detective work. Like, I would play the hell out of a detective-focused Batman game, where imagine doing, like, this style of interrogation as Batman. I think that would be really, really interesting. Except we would just be like, where are they? We just do that over and over again. Doubt on Batman over and over again. So I really enjoyed that. Like, in terms of investigating a crime, because you could miss a piece of evidence and it completely changes your playthrough or your gameplay, and can be the difference between you solving and not solving a case or getting a better score when it all comes down to it. Unfortunately, with it being a Rockstar game, even though it's not like really encouraging you to explore, it's got a very empty open world, so just kind of tying that into gameplay as well. And even though, once again, not the focus, I don't remember the shooting being especially fine-tuned. Really, this game really shines in terms of, like, its again, the detective work. I think some of the chase sequences were pretty interesting. A lot of those, and a lot of the cases are, like, especially I think once you get to homicide, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, are really lengthy, and that's good. Like, you don't want to. These cases can sometimes take, in real life, obviously, weeks, months, years. So obviously you have to condense that down in a video game. But it's fun that they actually, again, are doing their due diligence and making it seem like you're investigating real crimes. And I think that's where the game really shines. And unfortunately, it is hampered by, quote-unquote, an open world, even though this, like, didn't need to be an open world game. Like the way the Mafia games are open world. Like, those don't need to be open world either. I would have been okay with with LA Noire telling us where to go and just having a really... And it does have a really pretty backdrop when it comes to LA, but, just a little empty.
Yeah, it could have been a little bit more linear in that aspect. I will say, I didn't drive very well in this game. I don't drive well, I think, in general in games. I really struggled in this one. So I very much, because I was also just tired of having to constantly ask. I know it sounds like a great mechanic, but in execution, again, not. In this game, asking your passenger side who knows the directions, like, hey, when do I take a left? But you have to keep clicking X to initiate that discussion. And then they're also talking during the drive as well. So you have to find, like, when is the right time to interrupt. And then you're crashing all over the place. Like, the amount of city damages that I caused was just a nightmare. So
you're a liability, Eric. You're off the force.
Yeah, so open world, not great. I also got to explore a little bit of it on foot, because on Twitch, patron of the show, Briar, redeemed channel points where I couldn't drive for 5 minutes. So I just walked and ran into people, which was a little entertaining, but got old very, very quick. And all that to say, I agree with you, Phil, on everything you mentioned. I could kind of reinforce what you were feeling from back then, because the open world is very empty. You do get some stuff you can run into, and, like, it's like a bank robbery you can stop, or a shootout you can join, but that's not enticing enough to go out there into the world, unfortunately. And then on top of that, the combat is the weaker part of Rockstar's, like, library, as far as I've been familiar with. It's doable, it's okay, but yeah, the combat is not exactly fine-tuned. It's just serviceable, which definitely is an issue. But even though there are some highs and lows there, I think one of the highs, and Phil, You talked about the 1940s vibe and noir, obviously, vibe of this game. The high for me is the music, and that is that original score and soundtrack that was created. This is a soundtrack that has won awards, it's been remixed, it's had a lot of notoriety and popularity. I would say it's how some people even learned of the game. And Phil, the music set the tone so much throughout the game, which is exactly what they were trying to do. They didn't want to make it a mechanic of the game. They really wanted it to set the mood. And I think they definitely executed that. At no time did I really feel disengaged with the music. It just always felt like a really positive part of the experience of the game itself. And I think I had to mention it here. We could mention great music in a lot of video games, but this one's so crucial to the whole theme and vibe that I think it just has to be probably my last takeaway. And it's probably the most positive takeaway when we talk about the highs of this game.
Yeah, that's also a thing that, once again, is prevalent in, like, the Mafia games. Like, in modern GTA, I'll always find myself either turning off the radio or flipping through the station until I can find something that's, like, not making my ears bleed. But here, like, there's a lot of licensed music, like Louis Armstrong is in there, and I never remember, like, wanting to shut that off, which, again, is why I'd like to do a little bit more of a deep dive into some of these older films that definitely inspired L.A. Noire. So, yeah, and also even coming down to the sound design, like, when you in an interrogation and there's like a little audio cue, like even that stuff is really, really nice. And again, akin to those movies from, those style of films. So yeah, I'm really glad that you pointed that out, because it is, the score is outstanding. The licensed music is great. And yeah, really it brings the game to life in a way that, again, its streets unfortunately do not. So, I think they were like on the cusp of something very, very special. And again, it is groundbreaking what they were able to pull off. But maybe a little bit better writing, a little fine tuning when it comes to the gameplay, and we probably would have had something that would be talked about in the same vein as some of like the GTA 4s, the Red Deads, along those lines when you talk about Rockstar. But unfortunately, it's like right there in, like, I think that B tier. I think it's a really good game that could have been great. So I want to kind of bring it back around to what I had mentioned in the very beginning of the episode, Eric, is do you see Rockstar taking another shot at something like this? Again, they're just publishers here. They're not developing this game, but like we know what Red Dead and especially, of course, Grand Theft Auto 6 being on the horizon, like they had that spy game that was supposed to come out at one point that Rockstar was developing that just disappeared from the face of the earth. It was called Agent, and it's just gone now. So, like, do you ever foresee Rockstar ever doing something outside of the Red Dead or GTA box ever again?
Probably not. I mean, I'm actually surprised they haven't made this more of a game mechanic in another franchise, like a Grand Theft Auto. Like, I could easily see them just, like, throwing it in there. The facial recognition thing, I don't think that's something they're going back to the well for. And maybe that has to do with the fact that this game got delayed so much, and maybe that had something to do with it. But I don't know that there's really going to be an audience that's waiting for, like, an LA Noire 2. I think if they were going to do it, it would be a completely brand new franchise or property that would have a similar element or theme. If this game could have a little bit more substance in the open world like a Grand Theft Auto, and a little bit more of a cohesive story like a Red Dead Redemption, with the elements it has, there's a masterpiece of a game here. And playing this game in 2025, pretty fun. Pretty fun. I'm not like dreading it. Like, I'm not dreading to play this game just for content or just for the episode. Like, I had a really good time with it. Some of them are lengthy, and sometimes it doesn't feel like the consequences are fully there. Like, I always felt like when I did really good, I felt good about myself. But when I did shitty and I still managed to finish the mission, I didn't really love that aspect of it, which is why I think our main point or takeaway is that this game could have been more linear. I think if it really had the backing of Rockstar and its technology and all of the IP that it has, I think they could take elements from a lot of games that they perfected and they could make a really great LA Noire sequel. I just don't think from 2011 to 2025, I just don't think there's been an appetite for it, and that's why we haven't seen it.
And I keep bringing them up, but it's just kind of like in the same vein. But like I just think the Mafia games fill this role now. And even though obviously you're not a detective, it does feel in terms of like a period piece. Like GTA is covering current day, Red Dead is covering the Wild West, and Mafia covers the Mafia. Because as you were talking about in LA Noire 2, I was like, oh yeah, think about how cool it would be if they did a different era, like when Chicago was like run by gangs. I was like, that's Mafia. That's already Mafia. So, I mean, I guess it could be a little bit different doing it from the perspective of a detective. I think that could be very interesting. But yeah, 15 years removed from the game, one remaster. It hasn't been remastered over and over again like a Grand Theft Auto. So, LA Noire is probably going to sit by itself, unfortunately. But again, not a terrible game and something that I would consider revisiting, like if I ever really, really like got into my library. But it's good to still talk about it because it has seen a little bit of a resurgence in terms of like YouTube documentaries. Shout out to those that I watched getting prepared for this episode. But yeah, I mean, it was very well received for its time. Eric will go over the scores before we wrap up the episode. The Metacritic score is at an 89, which obviously is very, very good. Edge, Eurogamer, and Edge and Eurogaming gave it an 8 out of 10. Game Informer, 8.75. It's got a couple perfect scores from like GamePro and The Guardian. IGN, 8.5 out of 10. So GameSpot, 9 out of 10. So yeah, very much well received, and for good reason. Like you said, as far as those, because like our negatives are just like, they're not terrible. They're just like, man, I wish if they had just done a little bit more fine-tuned a couple things, this could have been a classic. So yeah, still a very good game and reviewed very well as well.
Yes, I definitely would say that's the overarching theme, is that this is a good game with flaws, but I think those flaws have to really do with its time period of when it was developed and when it released. So, Phil, there's a lot of reminiscing going on for this particular game, but without going over like the individual cases and individual characters and really going into that type of a breakdown, which isn't what we set out to do here, I think we've kind of summarized everything we wanted to for our Reminisce episode of LA Noire. And when this episode drops, the day it drops, I'll definitely be streaming this at least one more time because it is a really good time to play. So if this is a game that's on your radar to play for the first time, or you're just like us and you remember it fondly, I would recommend checking it out in 2025. I think there's definitely still some fun to be had here.
Do you want to talk about the ending before we end? Do you remember the ending?
I think he dies, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He does die. He does die, and he, very later on in the game, again, this ties all back to his World War II days. A guy that he had like served with like kidnaps a woman, and then they get into the sewers, and then like you play like the last hour or two of the game not as somebody else. And I just remember being like, what? we spent all this time with Cole, and he does sacrifice himself. But again, story stuff that just like you could have done better. just missed a little bit. But yeah, he gets swept away in the Los Angeles sewers. Not a great way to go.
And maybe, was it a finality death, or was it like open-ended? Because you never know.
I don't know. They had a funeral for him. I think the body was in the casket.
Did they show it? That's the thing.
No, it was not open casket.
Okay, well, I'm saying now he could be in witness protection, living a whole new life. They could make it happen if they really wanted to. But yeah,
Cole Phelps will return.
I remember the sewer stuff at the end and like the chase. But yeah, I don't really, again, remember much memorable about the story that would have served a real purpose or like given me a lot of emotional impact. So I'm not surprised. Be honest.
At one point, a lot of these white people look the same in the 40s.
Listen,
which one of these? Which one of my partners is that?
Listen,
there's the skinny one and the fat one.
I'm not. You're not lying.
But that's LA Noire. Folks, have you played this game recently? Would you play it again? And would you like to see this type of game or even an LA Noire 2 in the future? We'd love to hear from you. So make sure you click the link, tree link. Boy, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm sick. I got through 30 minutes of this pretty good. I'm fading fast, so we got to get through this. Make sure you click the Linktree link in the show notes of this and every single episode. You can keep up with us on social media, the most important ones being Instagram, TikTok, our growing Discord community, and Twitch, where we are streaming all the time. And we very much appreciate those of you that have supported us over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, giving those 5-star reviews. Those are very helpful for the lifeblood of the show, and we thank you so much. But if you find yourself wanting to get a little bit more from the podcast, maybe getting episodes early and even having a hand in the content that we release, Eric will let you know a little bit about that. Before we get out of here, I'm going to lay down.
If all of that sounds amazing and you have way more energy than Phil, bring that on over to our Patreon, where patrons of the show, Briar, T3 Kato, Vintage Macaroni, Corey from The World Is My Burrito, and Nick Casbaro, the author of the Vitellarium series, are supporting us monthly on that platform in exchange for behind the scenes and early access to episodes like this one. The month of October is currently planned to be Patreon month, and it's the second one we've done this year, where our patrons of the show will be able to select games and other forms of media like movies and shows to recommend, and we're going to cover them here on the podcast. But if that's not something you're interested in, or you're not in a position to do so, all the free stuff that Phil mentioned really helps quite a bit. With all that being said, that is the end of our episode, and Phil needs a nap. So please remember that we release new episodes every Wednesday. I'm Mr. Eric Almighty. It's Phil the Filipino, and all you got to do is wait for it.
This is the Wait For It podcast.